Well, folks, the new core set has been announced, and the Year of the Wolf is almost upon us, and it's going to bring along some big changes. We've got like cards getting balance changes, a bunch of really interesting cards showing up in the core set, like Ziliax is back, for instance. We got new keywords in the core set, like magnetic. We already kind of knew about overheal and tradable based on some of the cards revealed so far in Festival of Legends. And we got a new little roadmap breakdown here. We got a lot to talk about. So first, we're going to run through this blog post real quick. Then we're going to take a look in more detail at each of the cards coming and going for each class, neutral, and we're going to take a closer look at all of the balance adjusted cards as well. So this is going to be a pretty big video, a lot to cover. But let's kick it off here with this roadmap. And if you want to read this full blog post, there'll be a link in the description down below. But the roadmap here in particular, I got to say, there's nothing really interesting about this one. I compared it to last year's roadmap. It looks basically the same, but it's just missing mercenaries. As we know, mercenaries got its plug pulled recently. So as expected, no major mercenaries updates. There is one thing I think we should call out, though, specifically, which is that Wild. I know hard to see this. This is really small, but this reads Wild, and somewhere in phase 2, which would be during the second expansion's release phase, there's going to be something for Wild. We don't know what that means, but that is new and different. So Wild players perhaps rejoice. You're going to get some kind of attention, it looks like, in Wild, but everything else kind of expected. Expansion, mini set, battlegrounds, there's nothing changed there. Balance updates, that's normal. Events are normal. Tavern brawls, of course. If you're like a duels enjoyer, don't worry, duels wasn't on last year's either, and it still got updates and stuff throughout the year. It's just not specific enough to be called out here, I guess. So you don't expect anything crazy different except for this Wild thing, which certainly intriguing and curious what that's going to be. Maybe some kind of Wild format change. They've teased a lot, like what they're going to do with Wild, some major balance changes, an event, tournament. We don't know, but we'll see. So moving on, there's a cool video if you want to watch this. This kind of recaps some of the card changes we're going to talk about. I did want to spotlight specifically this paragraph, though. This is something that Cora, one of the devs, also referenced on Twitter, that they're looking to be more flexible about the core set throughout the year by allowing for both planned adjustments and unplanned balance changes. And by adjustments there, I think they mean they're willing to move cards in and out of the core set as they see fit. So this is less of a locked-in, fixed core set. I'm sure a vast majority would stay the same, but they might be willing to make some tweaks here and there to both balance and swapping in and out cards. That's what Cora said on Twitter as well. So pretty interesting possibilities there. I think that's great. More flexibility is perfect. Keeping things locked in for the sake of like keeping them locked in is not a great argument, right? If the game could be made better with some changes here and there, I think that's really good news. They also talked about tradable coming back. As we had seen teased, there are going to be some tradable cards in the core set. Again, we'll talk about specific cards a little later. I'm going to show you every single card that's changing in the core set. They're also saying for sure this is going to be an evergreen keyword. It's not just necessarily for this year, which is unlike magnetic, which is coming back as well with Ziliax, which sounds like it's just going to be coming back for this year. They didn't say like, hey, we're making magnetic evergreen. They are saying we're making tradable evergreen like Rush or Divine Shield. And in fact, there's not only going to be tradable cards coming into core, but we should also expect to see new tradable cards introduced throughout the Year of the Wolf and for years to come. So future expansions are also going to feature tradable, which I think it's been a great keyword, a huge hit. So happy to see that. Now, on the other side of things is magnetic. We're getting some magnetic cards returning, chief among them Ziliax, which I'm beyond excited to see Ziliax. I freaking love Ziliax. Now, they do say for magnetic is not becoming an evergreen keyword. They will not necessarily stay in core beyond this update, but they do have plans to make some fun mechs and stuff to use magnetic at least this year. Also discussed here was Priest and Overheal. There's a lot of discussion here about why they decided to kind of tune up Priest and give it a new keyword and so on and so forth. So mainly making healing more rewarding and flexible. And we're seeing some core cards redesigned to utilize this Overheal package. And both of these seem pretty cool. Mana Geode in particular. I always like that card. I think it's fun to see it coming back. with Overheal. Also, Benedictus we'll talk about later, but coming back for the core set as well. So cool, really strong identity stuff for Priest. A lot of detail if you want to read this. I do think this is important. I wanted to call out for sure, though. These sorts of tune-ups are things we're hoping to do more frequently in the future. And specifically, they talk about like Paladin here, for instance. We've set the stage for a look at Paladin for this kind of tune-up. And we're trying out the class without any secrets in the core set. So Paladin, I guess, is probably not going to have secrets this entire year, but also setting the stage to look at it more closely later. So any classes that need a sort of core identity adjustment like Priest might be getting it in the future. So all that said, that's, I think, a recap of the major points of this blog post. So now let's dive into the cards themselves. So they prepared some handy graphics here. First up are the cards leaving and the cards that are new to core. So leaving cards on the left, new cards are on the right. And I know I'm blocking some of these, but I'm going to be scrolling. So just look at the top half of the screen. You'll be able to see these as I scroll down. Just get over it. There's nowhere that's good for my head to go while keeping these as zoomed in as possible. So you'll note there are also some balance changes to a lot of these cards. I'm going to talk about some of the highlights. I'm not going to run through every single card, but I'm going to have another screen in particular showcasing some of the balance changes in particular. So don't fret if you want to get a closer look at balance changes. We'll talk about those on a separate screen. So kicking it off here is Demon Hunter losing Corvus, Bloodthorn, Sightless Watcher, and Chaos Nova, which I don't think any of these are huge losses. Chaos Nova, you know, it's an AoE, but there's going to be some replacement AoEs like Immolation Aura that I think are just cheaper, more flexible. Anyway, Kane's Sun Fury coming back, though, is, I think, particularly intriguing. Pretty scary card, of course, just being able to ignore taunt. That can help give a lot of lethality, especially to attack-based decks. So certainly one there to keep an eye on. And Illidari Studies, discovering an Outcast card. There's already that Outcast package we've seen teased. This feels like even more fuel for that. So this could also be really important, I think, for Demon Hunter. So moving on over to Druid, I don't think anything really notable being lost here. Earthen Scales has been impactful. At 2 mana, it felt a little worse. At 1 mana, though, could do some pretty gross stuff, I know, at certain stages. I'm still getting played at 2, so I guess that's a notable loss. As far as what they're getting the Eclipse package from Dark Moon, which Solar Eclipse in particular is a really intimidating card that can create so many big pop-offs and crazy turns, being able to double spells. So I think that's absolutely a card to keep an eye on. And then Witchwood Apple we'll talk about a little more later in regards to its balance change, but you're going to get 2 Treants now for 1 mana, and the Treants are going to cost 1 mana. So a much cheaper way to kind of fill your hand. So there could be some hand druid stuff, but also just getting some cheaper resources to play down perhaps for a token deck as well is something to keep an eye on. So moving on to Hunter, man, they got a lot of changes. Losing Dire Frenzy. We talked about how Dire Frenzy could be relevant to things like Freebirds. So I guess that's gone away. Not a card that was utilized a lot otherwise. And frankly, I don't remember seeing any of these much in standard format. I didn't even know Cloaked Hunters was in standard. If you want to know the truth, I don't remember ever seeing that. And Shaw, like, he'd seen some crazy stuff with that occasionally, but very rare. But getting a more interesting secret package, I would argue, with Wandering Monster and Cat Trick. Those are both pretty interesting secrets. Another nice buff. We've got some beast synergies, and then Dragon Bane. This always felt like a cool card. Could really pump out some big damage when timed well. So certainly another interesting one to keep an eye on there. But some good secrets teased here as well. Moving over to Mage. No major losses here that I spot. Cone of Cold could be handy sometimes as another little defensive board lockdown freeze sort of card, but there's been access to plenty of other of those anyway. And then these are all kind of throwaways. Nobody was playing much Calicos. Flame Strike wasn't even being played in big spell decks, just couldn't keep up. Pyromaniac, Ethereal Conjure, again, I didn't even really know those were in. I didn't even know those were in the core set. But we are getting Fire Sale. This is crazy because it just was about to rotate and it's already back as a tradable card. So it's been a good AoE. Stargazer Luna can do some pretty cool stuff. This is like a buffed Flame Geyser. I always liked Arcane Artificer, giving you some big spell synergies, some big armor gain synergies. I'm not sure Firelands Portal will keep up quite as well in modern day Hearthstone, but some fire package in there in particular, it might be something to keep an eye on. Now moving over to Paladin, we are losing secrets like we saw teased, so 3 secrets going away. I guess that's probably all the secrets as I read that blog post anyway. Raglight Lord, I love this card, but not a big loss. Aldor, I didn't see played much. Here is some additional Silverhand Recruit synergy. We lost some with Alterac Valley, but we've still had some sticking around as well. Particularly, I think Castle Nathria had some Silverhand Recruit synergy. So Muster and Lothraxian could both be some nice support for that. Hand of Adal was always a really good card. This hand buff Grime Street is better here, so that's interesting. Hammer of Wrath, I think, got buffed a little bit there. Probably not a lot of utility on Hammer of Wrath, but Hand of Adal and the Silverhand stuff is at least something to keep an eye on, I would say. Priest got a ton of changes as they had teased. Losing Lyra and Murazan, both 2 really fun cards, but ones that didn't get played a ton. Losing Radiant Elemental is really important for some of those early spell synergy based decks. Northshire Cleric, theoretically good, but I don't think I saw it a ton, honestly, even in those early game decks. As for what's being added, a bunch of Overheal synergy stuff. So Mana Geode got changed to Overheal, summon a 2/2 crystal. And again, we'll see these on another screen. Crimson Clergy got changed to Overheal, draw a card. Holy Champion's now 2 mana. I think this used to be like a 4 mana 4/5 or something. But it also has Overheal, gain +2 attack. So this could be a pretty nutty scaling attack threat. Benedictus is showing up to give you Shadow Form as a part of the core set. That's pretty cool, especially that new weapon for Priest that makes your hero power cost 0. That's pretty nifty. Katrina Muerte is now an Undead synergy card. I'm not sure it's going to be worth it. Seems a little expensive for the Undead package, but cool that we're seeing a change to fit that model. Shard is, I think, a really welcome sight as a tradable card. That's felt really good. And Shadow Ascendant, even as a 2/3 here, I don't really see getting played much, but loving this like new Overheal synergy for a lot of old forgotten cards. Now for Rogue, this is a pretty crazy core set, I have to say. Number 1, you'll note Shadow Step is not leaving. That was a big point of contention and conversation leading into the core set. So Rogue is keeping Shadow Step and Prep both, which that's going to be a lot of high power cards available for Rogue. As for what they're losing, nothing here looks like a major loss to me. Vanessa Van Cleef maybe for some thievery type things. Sprint, I mean, that got toyed with a little bit. Sinister Strike with some damage. Cold Blood was hard to play, so not a lot of huge losses, but some really powerful cards incoming, I think, because you've got Shadow Jeweler Hanar coming back. That's crazy. He's getting a secret package to go with the secrets we already got for Rogue. I guess it was in Castle Nathria, so a lot of secret support here for Rogue. Elven Minstrel actually getting buffed a little bit, I guess. I think he used to be slightly smaller stat-wise. Probably not super impactful. But Fan of Knives going to 2 mana. That's a crazy change and feels like a pretty good card at that stage. A little bit of AoE, especially if you have any spell damage, and some card draw bundled in. And Eviscerate coming back as well for additional reach. I think Rogue did lose a little reach with like Wicked Stab going away from Alterac Valley, so Eviscerate probably filling in the gaps there a little bit. So moving over to Shaman, they're losing Kragwa, which nobody really played much, but there's always some like goofy combos teased with Kragwa. But interestingly, getting some nice totem support with Thing from Below and Grand Totem Eyesore, and we've already seen some totem cards, building up. This could be the totem critical mass that we're looking for. But also, I think, and more importantly, perhaps, are some really strong Overload synergy cards. Ancestral Knowledge with Overload 1 instead of 2 makes this feel way, way better for Overload synergy decks with Inza. Zap, also a pretty solid Overload card, and Overdraft returning immediately as well, with tradable and some Overload payoff too. So both totems and Overload getting really big support pieces here, it looks like to me, in Shaman. Next up is Warlock, and I would say not losing anything of note here. Couple discard synergy pieces with Tiny Knight and Jeklik, but I don't think really notable losses in either case. I would say, though, gaining some really neat stuff. The File, of course, great board clear. And then Mal'Ganis, I don't think Mal'Ganis is a great card in his own right anymore, but we do have the Jailer also still in Standard. So Mal'Ganis and Jailer, as we've seen in duels, can sometimes create these like board lockouts where your opponent is just completely helpless without the exact right kind of universal board clear sort of card. So that's something to lock away in the back of your brain. If you get some ways to like cheat these cards out or something, or some way to set that up, that could be kind of gross. So keep that in mind for sure. And then next up is Warrior, also getting, I think, some huge changes here. We're looking at what, 7 cards in and out. So as for what they're losing, nothing jumps out at me a ton here as far as like great cards. Armor Smith could be pretty handy for enraged stuff sometimes. So those were tending a little more aggressively than defensively. I definitely love Armor Smith, so a little sad to see that one gone, but everything else here didn't feel too great. As for what's being gained, we're retaining some armor gain here of Heavy Plate. We've got a slightly buffed Armagadillo, maybe for some taunt synergies. Sword Eater was definitely a good card again with some taunt synergies. Woodcutter's Axe got changed to not affect rush minions. It affects everything now, which I guess is kind of nice, but still doesn't seem crazy to me. Yeah, I mean, these look like okay cards, but I'd say really only Sword Eater there is like a standout high-powered card historically. The rest don't really feel like they're pushing Warrior, which I think a lot of people are worried about. So, yeah, is that enough? I don't know. So moving over to neutral here, we'll kind of take this row by row, I guess, so my fat head doesn't block too much of it as we go. We're losing the Explorers. So Reno and Bran gone. Bran in particular was, a really important loss. This card was getting played a ton. I'm really sad Reno's rotating because we never actually got any additional Highlander support cards. I thought he was going to maybe tease some Highlander stuff. It never arrived. Replacing these 4 legendaries, though, are some classics, man. Ragnaros, we kind of expected based on the Jive Insect Shaman card, so no surprise there, no changes there. Dr. Boom is back. I don't think he's going to be great in this era, but cool to see. Ziliax is back, which I love, and Black Knight is now 4 mana, which is pretty crazy. Wonder if that gets played at all. It's pretty swingy if there are any sizable taunts out there, but may still not be good enough. These losses aren't too notable. We kind of got a Faceless Manipulator replacement as well, but we are getting Dirty Rat back, which is pretty crazy. Great disruption card historically, and Cult Neophyte as well. This card has been really, really good in the past, especially in Rogue, still available with like Shadow Step and stuff, and all these bounce effects. You can have things that just completely lock down your opponent with Cult Neophyte. Replicating Menace, another magnetic card alongside Ziliax. I think we're going to see a couple more as well. It's got a slight buff, it looks like, too. Over here, yeah, Lone Champion is funny because he was kind of like the soloist cards that we're getting in this expansion, the OG soloist, but he's gone. Acidic Swampu's gone, but we're getting the Rustrod Viper we saw earlier, so that's kind of being replaced immediately. We're getting Royal Librarian back, and I think slightly buffed. So good silence option there. And Armor Vendor, some cool early game life gain. I like to see that. And another magnetic card here with War Gear. Losses over here, bunch of arena cards, nothing notable. And additions here, some arena cards. I don't think Hinchclad Thug could really keep up these days. I don't think that's scary. Rustrod Viper, good to see. Bronze Gatekeeper does feel like a pretty good magnetic. I think this used to be maybe a 1/5 as well, if I recall. So 2/5 is a slight buff, perhaps. We'll talk about buffs again. And then finally, my fat head's just going to be in the way here, but it's Tour Guide and Snow Flipper Penguin over here. So losing Murloc, Tiny Fin, gaining Snow Flipper Penguin. Tour Guide is actually kind of intriguing, and Glacial Shard historically has been a really good card as well. So keep an eye on some of these. They might actually get played despite not looking too exciting. So those are the changes leaving and joining core. Quite a bit of significant stuff to consider there. I think there's some real power cards in here too that could make some big changes. So next up, we're going to talk about the cards that got balance change. There are some you have not seen yet that are staying in core but got a balance change, and then some of these were teased that got balance changed who are being added to core. All right, so these are the cards that have had balance changes, and some of those are cards that are returning to core that were already in core but got buffs. Some of those you've already seen teased are new to core this year. So let's start off with returning to core cards and some of the changes here. For instance, Flame Reaper is now a 5/3 instead of a 4/3. Pretty minimal change. I don't really think this helps that card get played. We did see some like random weapon generation stuff for Demon Hunter. Maybe that helps a little bit there. Gnar Glavesmith is now a 3/3 instead of a 3/2. Pretty small change. I am a little more hopeful for the Glavesmith because of Outcast synergies. Again, there might be some ways to discover this and stuff where that feels helpful. Not a huge change otherwise. Ratscale Naga is a 3/3 instead of a 3/2. I feel like this card started out as a 3/1 maybe, but I think it was already buffed to a 3/2. Now it's a 3/3. Again, this small helpful change. This card still feels like it has a lot of potential to me. I feel like we're just waiting for the right deck to pop off with the Ratscale Naga. The Metamorphosis is now 4 mana. I think this used to be like a 5 that dealt 5, and now it's a 4 that deals 4. I'm intrigued by that. I think that's pretty efficient. 4 mana for 8 damage can be pretty cool. Maybe some Fel synergies popping up as well. I would keep an eye on that at the changed level. The Ancient of Lore over here is now a 7 mana 7/7, and it can restore 7 health. I still think that's way too slow. 7 mana draw 2 with slightly better stats just doesn't make a difference. Druid of the Claw got a really significant change. It's now 6 mana, and it transforms into either a 7/6 with Rush or a 4/9 with Taunt. So it is like more efficient from a stat output per mana cost standpoint. But as a 6 mana card, I still don't think that's nearly competitive enough. That feels far too weak to me. Soul of the Forest went down to 3 mana, which that seems intriguing. A token Druid build using that as a stabilizer, that feels pretty interesting. Savannah Highmane is now a 7/5 instead of a 6/5, I guess. And that feels pretty small. I don't think that ever gets this card played, but we have seen, again, some random generation stuff where that might matter. The Babbling Book is now a 1/2, it looks like, instead of a 1/1. That's always helpful. Doesn't hurt. Not a huge change, but Babbling Book might get tossed into some decks. True Silver Champion is now going to restore 3 health instead of 2. Sure, that's a nice freebie change. I don't think that gets the True Silver there, but maybe some particular synergy is important for that. Consecration going down to 3 mana. We had seen this one power crept a little bit by some of the Demon Hunter cards, so seeing this at 3 feels a little better. I think that's actually a pretty good card at 3 mana as well. Some board sweep potential, but also some cheap face damage as well. Easier to get out with an equality. It looked like we were keeping equality, so that could be a really nice 1-2 punch. The Draconid Operative is a little cheaper now at 4. Did lose some stats as well, but a little more efficient perhaps getting this out for your Discover effect if that's what you're playing for. For some reason, this looks really weird and wrong to me. This card is like so iconic as a 5 mana 5/6, but it probably does increase the playability a little bit. When you care more about the effect than the body, cheaper is typically better. Still not sure this is a very good card though. Holy Nova is now going to hit all enemies, so it can go face. Used to, this would only hit enemy minions. This used to be 5 mana way back in the day, I guess, too, but now it goes face. So that's a nice little change. Kind of brings it in line with the consecration changes and such. Psychic Conjurer now going to be a 1/2, much like Babbling Book. That's kind of free. Same for Swashbuckler, now 1/2. I think that's fine, pulling all these like generation cards into that 1/2 slot, since that's no longer, well, never really was, but it's certainly not keeping up with other, base stat lines for 1-drops now. Feral Spirit looks like it's going to be a nature spell, which could help some synergies here and there. I think otherwise unchanged as I read it. Hex is going back to 3 mana. That's certainly better for that card. 4 always felt weird and out of nowhere, and I think 3 mana is fine. Menacing Nimbus getting a little buff to health as well, in line with these. Small change. Hellfire going down to 3, which does again make that a really good early game clear, I would say. I think Hellfire at 3 gets played a fair bit. That's also kind of just becoming decent damage output at that stage as well, if you're looking for some lower cost finishers. So for cards new to core, we saw a lot of these teased and talked through some. Witchwood Apple, now 1 mana, you're only getting 2 treants. I think you used to get 3, if I remember. I'm sure I'm getting a few things wrong here and there for these old unplayed cards. Please feel free to correct me in the comments if I misstate anything. But also of note, the treants, as I mentioned, are now going to cost 1 mana instead of 2, so far more efficient to play. The Blazing Battle Mage treatment for the treants is pretty cool. Flame Guys are going down to 1 mana, so pretty efficient 1 mana, deal 2. That's still going to get you that elemental in hand, maybe some nice fuel for elemental decks. Hammer of Wrath at 3 certainly feels more fair to me. Might make this card playable. You know, sweep up a minion early, clean something up, and then, you know, some face damage later too, perhaps dig for some outs and stuff. I like it at 3. Grime Street Outfitter is now a 2/2, same hand buff I believe is old. True Muerte I think is a mana cheaper and now will only hit undeads, which might feel like a limitation, but remember with resurrect effects that can be good because you can like more specifically manipulate what gets resurrected. That said, I still think she comes out too late for all the other cool undead stuff in Priest, so outside of a really specific synergy seems too slow. Mana Geode, Crimson Clergy, and Holy Champion we talked about a fair bit, getting these overheal synergies, supporting this overheal tempo package that we got some new cards for in Festival of Legends. Shadow Ascendant, now a 2/3, same buff as I recall, so slightly more survivability, still feels a little weak to me. Elven Minstrel, I think, used to be a 3/2, so not a huge change, but maybe a little bit of help there. Fan of Knives, the 2 mana feels way better, as we talked about. That's pretty cool. Ancestral Knowledge feels really, really good. I think at Overload 1, that could be a really important card for the Inza Overload decks. I'm still not confident that gets them there. Still worried about Inza being a hit or miss, like you got to hit him early or he fails kind of card, but it's more possible with that. Yeah, so Spirit Bomb is here, but it doesn't actually belong here. I have an out-of-date graphic. Blizzard sent me this one, but this is a mistake. It's not on the latest graphic, so ignore Spirit Bomb. It is new to the core set, but it has not been balance changed. Armagadillo here is now 4/8. I guess this used to be a 4/7 as I remember. It still feels pretty slow to me. There is a lot of taunt stuff building up for Warrior, but feels bad. Woodcutter's Axe definitely feels better now that it hits any given minion, not just a rush minion, so this has a lot more flexibility. That might be worth it. It's still only a single buff compared to like the, you know, the enraged weapon they have, like the one that hits damaged minions, you know. This does not feel like it scales very well comparatively, but some potential perhaps. We talked about Black Knight at 4. I'm intrigued by that. I think it's going to require specific meta to have enough big taunts to make it worth it, but that is a lot cheaper. Pretty swingy card in that case. Menace and War Gear just got some small stat buffs, which certainly helps for magnetic cards. I'm not convinced these are going to feel great still, but interesting to see. Oh, same for Bronze Gatekeeper as well. I think plus 1 attack. And then Librarian getting, I believe, a little bit of a attack buff to make him a 4/4. Totally feels fine. We had Spellbreaker forever as a 4/3. This is tradable, which is great for tech cards, so I think that's absolutely in line with what you might expect. So those are the changes. I don't think anything crazy powerful happens as a result of this, but I do think some good cards show up. Soul of the Forest, Consecration in particular, look pretty good to me. Fan of Knives looks pretty good to me. Some of this overheal stuff might be really intriguing. So some actual really good cards based on these changes, and I'm happy they're willing to make these changes to keep these cards in line with modern power standards. So that said, thank you everybody. I realized my face might have covered these cards up at the end. Oh no, maybe we're okay. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching all of these various core set changes. I am very curious what all of you think about this new core set update. What are you excited to play? What do you think the most important changes are going to be? What cards are you surprised are staying in the core set? Actually, it might be kind of helpful to have a graphic for that because I can't remember everything. But yeah, big times, big changes, and pretty exciting stuff. So thank you much for watching, and until next time, game on.